here we go. Well, I just want to say, as usual, welcome everybody. Just for anybody who is going to be watching this recording, anybody in the voice with me. Right now, we just only have one person with me. It's Wasabi, but more people are going to join in really soon. And we starting the class on resource management fundamentals, and this is going to be a more practical one. I'm not going to be talking a lot about the theory like I done with other masterclasses in this format, but we're gonna look at the more practical examples. I saved some of the pro play games. There are 3 games right now. I think it's one of the words from the tank, one of the words from DPS player. It's Bad Time Story. The tank player is Nevix. I actually managed to get the VODs, even though their profile is locked. You're not able to watch their replays, but there was a possibility to still watch their gameplay. I think they're doing quite good. And there's one more player. It's gonna be, I think, let me just check real quick. It should be, yeah, the player's name is Wash Mabelai. It's currently top 1 rank support at the moment. So we're gonna talk about a few things there too. Oh, we have more people joining in now. Yeah, welcome. How are you doing? Oh, well, if you can talk, it's fine. I guess I will continue. I will go on. Yeah. Well, that's okay. We are starting with, first off, it's gonna be resource management basics. I'm just gonna talk about why resource management is important, and then, well, exactly look at those examples of everybody, of the tank, of the support, and DPS as well. So the basic rules is that Marvel Rivals and any hero shooter game is a game of resources, and you want to make sure that you are effective with resources. And to be able to do that, you need to follow some of the steps. I usually recommend to always start with your positioning. It's going to be your setup, just where you are on the map. And because you have the best position possible, and then you will be able to trade your resources in a more effective way. And how I like to describe it is you like to trade less expensive resources with more expensive ones. And we'll talk about each step more in depth, but I think let's just talk about the setup first. Let's just see what are potential steps, and then I will just try to separate everything on the small details. I will can talk about each step here a little bit more. First off, cover. I mentioned it pretty much in every class, but this is really important. Cover allows you to preserve resources for the actual fight and avoid getting poked too. Whenever we're using cover, it's really important that you're not just staying at a specific cover, but you're deciding what is that cover you're gonna go towards, just making sure that you're going from corner to corner constantly, making sure that there's minimized attention on you. You don't have as many people looking at you, because if you're getting poked, if we are spending our resources to just cover for that mistake because we're out of position, it becomes pretty difficult for you to do anything with the resources. It will be hard for you to engage and trade the resources. So we want to start with cover, and rotations here, in my opinion, is the second most important step. Is exactly connected to the cover. Like I said, going from corner to corner, or going from cover to cover, basically the same stuff here. But we need to always make sure that when we are rotating, and that is something what I will draw on the map here. Let me just have this board. I will have it open. And yeah, here we go. I'm just gonna drag it. Can you guys see that? Yeah, maybe Wasabi. I see that you're unmuted. Can you see the board?
Yep, yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, perfect. So what I want to say about this here, I usually like to call rotations. Is just something what a lot of players don't do, in my opinion. They are rotating in a line. They're just going from A to B position, just going from front line towards an enemy in a straight line, and that is not the most effective. I will draw what I mean here. For example, if we have enemy team at the position, let's say our team is at the position A, and there's going to be like a street. Let's imagine there's a street that's going this way. And on the street, let's imagine maybe it's a midtown map, maybe it's going to be any other map, doesn't matter to us really. we usually have this sort of main lane where the fight is going. Now, let's just maybe draw it this way, where the main lane goes here, and then there is gonna be the right side lane, and there's gonna be left side lane typically. And most of the teams typically stuck on the main lane. And what happens is when A goes towards the enemy team, which is at B, and if we trying to go from A, let's say we playing Venom, or we're playing Psylocke, or we're playing Black Panther, we just decide to engage that B right away. And if we're in danger, what a lot of people do is they instantly rotate back towards the team. They instantly go back towards the A. And because they do that, it becomes not as easy to keep up with uptime. What I mean by that is because it takes so much time for you to go back and you spending the resources to also go back to your team, that becomes harder for you to re-engage. So what is the solution? Is usually make sure that your engagements and disengagements are less linear. So if we're talking about this rotation here, it's going to be kind of like a straight line rotation. We're just going forward and backwards as well. Let's maybe say that this black arrow, this is when we go backwards. You see, this is a line. Exactly. What we want to do instead is make sure our rotations look like this. In a way, let's say we start from A, we can go towards the right side, or we can go towards the left side, and then after that we can always decide to do something from those positions. Let's call those positions maybe D, or this is gonna be also D1, stuff like that. And from here we can engage, and you see that it's not as linear. It's gonna be more angled in a way. Yeah, you're always going left or right first before the engagement. And this way you preserve your resources. I will talk about examples from the pro player, from the top 500 players as well, how they do that, obviously. But this is really important. Again, make sure you're not engaging in a straight line and disengaging in straight line, but make sure that you usually going towards the left and right sides of the map, because this way we're not getting as poked out from the B, from this main area where we expect the engagement to be. And yeah, obviously, if the pressure happens, if we done engaging on this B location, then we can always go back to D1 or Z and then keep up uptime. Let's imagine that each arrow here, it represents that you can re-engage in 1 second. In 1 second. And in here, it will take you maybe like around 4 seconds to disengage to your back line, and or maybe front line, get healed, and then re-engage again. Yeah, this is not as high uptime. But at the same time, we could be getting healing at a position D or D1. There's no reason why not to, if the map allows you to. Well, obviously, all of this is theory, but I will talk about that a little bit more going forward with all the examples. Now, and this is pretty much connected when you're thinking about escape or push options, where you're going forward and where you're going backwards. This way, it will make it easy for you to do all this stuff. Let's just go back to it. All this stuff here, what I described. Non-linear rotations, where you're going, what is that next cover I'm going to use, and what is that next cover I'm going to be pulling back towards as well. I think that's it. Let's maybe just also don't forget that about this step here. If you have cover, then you're able to stabilize. If you're low on resources, make sure you stabilize. Take your time to get back in the fight. But yeah, let's just watch 3 replays real quick. And after that, we'll go over the second step about just how to be effective with your resources. Yeah, how to trade less expensive resources with more expensive. Now, let's just start with this replay here. I believe this is going to be, yeah, this is going to be the right one. This is Nevix. They are Overwatch player, really good. They've been playing in Overwatch League. They've been playing in Contenders. I personally know this player too. Really good on tank currently. But they also, back in the days, been quite good DPS too in Overwatch. So you will see that all these ideas from Overwatch, because a lot of the times I'm bringing this up, it's pretty much translating to their gameplay. And whatever I teach you in the classes too, is pretty much will translate to this game as well. That's why let's just talk about how they're rotating, how they are preserving their resources. Let's just start with that setup. This is Thor gameplay. By the way, their profile is closed, but I was still managed to get the replay. There was a trick. I just had to track one of the players who have open profiles like Sape, for example. But yeah, anyway, let's just go towards the second part. I believe it's gonna start, or maybe we even have the chance to start with the defense, because I wanted to focus on their Thor. We could focus on any of the tanks, really, but let's just start with Thor. If you want me to focus on Doctor Strange or Magneto, we could also do that. It's just with Thor, it's specifically, you can emphasize how we're using those non-linear rotations. We're not always stuck on main. We are rotating towards the left, towards the right of the map, and then this allows us to have more resources. So for tank, the most important thing is to absorb the pressure. And with Thor, well, you cannot absorb like a lot of pressure, but anyway, your shields here are still allowing you to trade some of the enemy resources, some of the enemy less expensive cooldowns, and meanwhile, you have pretty expensive cooldown when you use your Awaken, when you're starting to do the pressure with that, and you can maybe trade some of the abilities. Let's say if we're engaging with Awaken and making sure that there's nothing what can stop it, making sure that we're not disrupted, and that's why before what matters is how you use your own abilities, and that's why cover matters quite a lot, just where you're going matters quite a lot. So we'll see here, this is going to be what we call poke phase. At the start of the fight, nothing's happening. We can just maybe use our resources earlier and make sure that we able to set up after. Let's see what they do. I think it's going to be pretty complicated for them to set up because the enemy team's been pretty oppressive. But anyway, they start to think, where can they go? And they start to go exactly away from their team, choosing non-linear rotation. I'm getting as close as possible, and because I do that while maintaining the cover, then I'm able to have my Awakened up. I'm able to have my... this, in the case of Thor, this is going to be mostly about his Thor force. If you have as much Thor force as possible, then you will actually be able to pressure after with the Awaken. Yeah. In the case of Doctor Strange or Magneto, that would be your defensive. For example, it would be on Doctor Strange if you have your shield up, if you have your E up as well before you're able to actively engage, or on the Magneto that would be bubbles, stuff like that. This on Thor is more satisfying to watch with all the mobility they have. They can potentially even bait the enemy to push them. And then you see here, they kind of preserve the resource a little bit, and if the enemies are trading, see what this cover allows them to do. The enemies are trading something with them. The Angela is going after them. They're using their flight, and they're trying to displace the Thor. And right now, this Thor did nothing. Basically, they still have their Thor force. They still have their full HP in here. But this player here, they're using the cooldown already. So in theory, the Nevix, if their team plays it right, obviously, they might have an advantage right now. So they start exposing using this Thor Force Awaken on the Angela. They notice that they kind of exposed though, so they cannot use it anymore. But anyway, the HP trade's been done. And right now, we have slight more advantage. Let's just look at this. Look at this Angela here, yeah? So they exactly use the cooldown. Yes, it's gonna go back up pretty soon, but at the same time, we also can get our Thor Force back afterwards. In here, it's gonna be a little bit unfortunate for the blue team afterwards, but yeah, let's keep watching. It's just the Strange ult hits pretty well here, and I think at this point of time, they might be losing this fight, especially with Magneto ult following up after. But yeah, let's watch the next one. I think it's gonna be even a better one to watch because it's gonna be a better resource trade for the blue team. So again, we start with non-linear rotation. We're kind of setting up as close as possible, and for every character is different. For Thor, you need to get it as close as possible. You need to make sure that you kind of going on a soft flank, what I call maybe 90 angle. You have your team over here. This is even kind of 180 angle, to be honest. This is still possible. You turn enemy attention around. This is good. You can always start with that. Why not? Because your hammer allows you to. There's no reason why not to. And you see them being patient, right? It's just when their team is ready, because we have that best cover, our team is engaging, we can start doing something with our resources. Yeah, we'll talk about the resource afterwards as well, just about all the trades, what they've done, the vacant. But anyway, just see how they always start at the best position possible. They're not kind of sit on the main. They making sure that they take advantage of their character first, and then afterwards we can decide what to do with our own pressure, with our own awakening here. Now, let's just look at another example real quick. This is gonna be a bad time story on DPS, and I will exactly talk about the cooldown trade a little bit more. Yeah, so but first off about the setup, so you guys have the context. Okay, this is Sylark. Okay, Sylark is a good DPS too, because you have some ability. You can exactly make sure that you using this non-linear rotation, using as much cover as possible, making sure that you're using the angles, and after that you can set up your own pressure. Okay, from what I've seen so far, Bad Time Story was playing a lot of Blade, but they've been doing quite good on any DPS in my opinion, so Sylark could be okay one to look at too. So first off, what the Sylark does, we have a lot of dash capability. Yeah, we have the shift, which allows us to rotate on the map, and on this map especially, it's important to fight for this section here, because we're able to do whatever we want to towards the point. We can always drop, we can always go around. That is something what I talked about in my one of our recent sessions, is that a lot of people actually just go main for no reason, and you can always try to take the best position possible first, especially if you're playing the dive character, you have more mobility, so your angle is gonna be deeper. But anyway, let's just start with seeing what they do. They going with the setup, yeah, making sure that they're using as much cover as possible, preserving as many resources as possible before the actual fight starts. Yeah, if it maybe think about it. You kind of have two phases of the fight. You have the poke phase, when they both enemy team and your team is pretty far. You guys are just exchanging the damage. But when the next phase starts, and this is what I call brawl phase, is when both teams are on top of each other, they're actively exchanging cooldowns. This is the time when you need most of your abilities. So this phase here, when we set it up, is exactly about that. Like you saw on Thor, this is the same stuff here. What we need on Sylark is make sure we at least have one dash, we have most of our HP, we are able to have good range as well. And the setup exactly allows us to do that. Yeah, and we just constantly choosing the best position possible. In this case, it's gonna be more of a flank options we're searching for. Like we see here, they're going a little bit more towards this backline. In the case of Sylark, you have invis ability, so you can, it makes it easy for you to set up in your favorable range, so why not? You can take advantage of that. Just make sure you have most of your abilities, like your shift, your right click. Yeah, for example here, we're dueling the Sylark right now. Let's take a look. So we see that they get invisible. Yeah. This little dash, by the way, is all about that they don't want to get hit by the Sylark first, because they don't want to get this bad cooldown trade. We'll talk about it later as well. It's just your resources is all about trading. Less expensive stuff is more expensive stuff. But anyway, they're able to start the pressure behind the cover, dealing with Sylark. They also got some help, and eventually this allowed them to win this duel. And after that, we exactly, because we had that position on the left side, now we secured the angle, we're able to do our own stuff and time the pressure on the rest of our team. But I see it's always, if the fight is over, if it's gonna be just the time before the fight starts, they usually will be investing in the setup. Let's, for example, see what they will do in the second fight. We see that Daredevil is flanking on the right side. They most likely also wanna try to make sure that they sit a little bit and have the most resources. It seems that they find that there are more opportunities to poke. Actually, it might be not as bad against this comp. Yeah, there's maybe, if we see Emma Frost, he's not as oppressive at a long distance, so why not? We can maybe poke early, but when these guys will be really active, like brawl phase here, when most of our team will be ready, then we need to have our resources again. And make sure that our dash is available, and our invis potentially is available too. And you see, because we maintain the cow pretty well, we have our full HP. If the enemies commit after us, because we baited them too, we had that good position, after that we can get better cooldown straight. Yeah, it does all of it Makes sense so far, or any questions? I think we'll just watch one more replay real quick with all the setup, and then we will talk about the resource trade right after, because that is going to be the most important step. But yeah, so far the step about setup should be pretty clear. I think I mentioned everything before in my previous classes too. But yeah, do you guys have any questions about anything? If no questions, we can continue. Let's just click on. There's going to be a last one replay here. It's for Loki, I believe. Again, just about the setup, about using cover, more of a support example here, and then we will talk about the resource trade right afterwards. So you will see that on Loki, because it's a long range support, you just need to be able to have that long range off angle. It's a position away from your core where most of your team is able to be active. For example, if my team is able to be active here, I can choose this long range angle and make sure I'm effective with that. And with your rotations, well, if we didn't talk about the like Psylocke or a Thor, you always have to not only think about pushing from cover to cover, but also think about making sure that you have an exit option too. Especially in support, it's gonna be really important for you to think, oh, what is that next step I'm gonna rotate to? What is that next good corner for me to be at? And with Loki, it's mostly about your clones, in my opinion. If you think about placing the clones on the right angle, if you're not positioned with clones all the time, but kind of separately, this allows you to have good escape plan. In case of Thor, that would be just pretty much using the dash as well. In case of Psylocke, it's also about how to use the dash. Every character allows you to think about escape option in a way. Obviously, there's some more stationary characters, but with most of them, you have some sort of either defensive or either mobility, which allows you to just go from one place to another, and this way it will make it easy. So we're starting here pretty much on the long range off angle, and right away there's going to be a good escape option for this play just in case. They have their one clone here, and they're also going to be placing the clone over there, and in this case they will start rotating because the pressure is happening on this side, but because we constantly maintain the good cover, we're not exposed to too many people. It means that they forced to go after us. It means that they forced to go after your team. Yeah, well, yourself a little bit more. We're kind of minimizing our hitbox in here, and then afterwards we can always respond with our own resources. It's gonna be your, in case of Loki, it can be shift, it can be just how do you reposition for the clone afterwards. Yeah, you see them kind of holding the main lane, but they always think, okay, the next fight starts, what is my escape option if something happens? They can maybe rotate towards that clone here, maybe there is gonna be anywhere else. Yeah, let's just watch the fight. It's gonna be playing more and more. Yeah, because they had to give up some space. And right now, there's gonna be a reason why they're in the main. Yeah, because we have a lot of action happening. But overall, there's always good direction to have thinking about what is the best position away from my core I can take, so it gives the enemy team a dilemma. Like I talked about this non-linear rotation. In the case of Loki, they'll be just probably going towards some sort of high ground. It would be just trying to make sure that you have this good long range line of sight, and then after that you can decide what to do. So you exactly will see them once they have time. Will most likely will try to reposition on the high ground later on. So at the moment, it's just kind of long sideline here, which is not bad too, but eventually, yeah, they're exactly choosing to be in the top because we also want to see an enemy, we want to poke them down a little bit more, and at the same time, we choosing this more proactive position. It forces the enemy resources in a way afterwards. So we keep poking, we keep doing stuff right now, and right now we're gonna have an advantage. So what this player is gonna be thinking about is what is that next corner I will be pushing towards. Generally speaking, if you have an advantage, then it's okay to be choosing the main side a little bit more. But if you don't, and your team is still pushing, let's say it would be 6v6, then I usually recommend to still make sure that you maintain the angles. You still have an advantage with those after, first of all. Because you need to generate the pressure. Yeah, we need to make sure that we starting the resource trade by having the best position first. Yeah, so we'll see them exactly also preparing for the next fight afterwards. And yeah, they probably will need to think about the angles a little bit more too. Yeah, eventually they will rotate towards this top, for example. They're not exactly going to be on main. They will try to maintain the little bit different position, not exactly the main lane. Yep, left side is going to be favorable because they have long range potential. I think for the most part that's about it, and yeah, we'll watch more of this, guys. I'm just gonna bring up the next step right after. So we talked a lot about the setup. I think this might be the good time to just talk about exactly like what happens with resources afterwards once we have all those good positions. Well, in Syria, what we're looking for, and that's always been in Overwatch and in this game too, what you need is try to trade less expensive stuff with more expensive stuff. And simplify that could be steps such as you could start your primary fire. Enemy uses the cooldowns, and then we can punish enemy with your own cooldowns. In theory, yeah, obviously, every situation has exceptions. In some cases, you can do something different. You can use your cooldowns first, but we'll talk about that later. But the basic rule is we are choosing that best position, and after that the enemy will be doing, I mean, we will be using something cheap, and afterwards we'll be punishing the enemy. By the way, I have good example. Let me just find it. I think it's been from the previous masterclass. It's been on Daredevil, I believe. We talked about the cooldown trade there briefly. I think that would be a really good one to just look at this exactly. But yeah, this is one way. Another way is we're using less expensive cooldown or ultimate, and enemy forced to use more expensive stuff. Yeah, for example, you use the dash on Psylocke, and then they forced to use something like Emma Frost form. Yeah, the diamond form. Or for example, we just use one mobility cooldown and then they are using the ultimate. For example, the Lunar Snow just scared because you don't win on Venom, and or Spider-Man just don't win and you use your ultimate. This is really big. Yeah. If we're able to trade this less expensive stuff with more expensive. And for other specifics, well, we'll talk about it later, but let's just start with the cooldown trade, pretty much. So first off, this could be good. Okay, I think let's just watch this one a little bit. Yeah, so this one is good to watch. We talked about this here. It's been Daredevil Masterclass, what you can do to carry that character. And you will see that right now, what the Daredevil will do is mostly choosing some sort of flank. They will try to make sure this is short range. And when we are at this best position, then we can start the cooldown trade. Well, what we can do is go for normal fire, or go just to make sure that you use your something less expensive. In the case of Daredevil, maybe they can be using the that's a throw on something. They usually need to activate their Fury to be able to do that, and then maybe you can force something big. And you'll see this duel is going to be interesting because there's going to be exactly enemy Daredevil, and they start with this roll right here. It is not as expensive because you're only spending this Fury here, and it's not as big cooldown compared to what this guy is gonna do. So they will exactly try to use the pool, and this shift here is much bigger cooldown. If I'm not mistaken, it's like 7 to 9 seconds. Maybe I can just go on the website. But anyway, it's pretty big cooldown there. And when we know that the cooldown trade like that happen, it's just there's less expensive stuff. We almost kind of did not as much, and they did quite a lot. We can always think about punishing the enemy afterwards. Like they use that cooldowns. Oh, that cooldown. Okay, then we are in favor. We have this better cooldown trade, so we can start committing to do something. And in the case of this guy, they exactly started to commit their pressure a little bit more. They use their E, and then they start committing with their combos, with their E one more time, and there's going to be better and better cooldown trade. Both of those guys, if you guys notice, they also have this orbs. I believe one from Mantis, and then there's another one from Lunar Snow. But anyway, let's pretend the pressure is sort of equal. And because we got the better cooldown trade here, this guy is forced to give up the space. And this is what it does. We usually winning the map control, and then after that we will be able to set up our own pressure later. Yeah, let's just maybe talk about this exactly on Thor. Yeah, let's just start with Thor first, and then we'll talk about DPS and support a little bit more too. Okay, so for Thor, we have the Snevix. Yeah, let's just go back. Yeah, we have it here. Meet down. Yeah, gonna play it. Yeah, but do you guys have any questions so far, by the way? Or yeah, no, this I mentioned quite a lot of it. Yeah, is there anything that's not clear or? All right, let's keep going then. We are at this stage of second fight exactly. Yeah, I mean the second point. We can look at the Thor here. I think we've been at this section on this part right away. Yeah, so I talked about the cooldown trade on Angela, yeah, because we got the best position possible. They started doing something, then we can do something afterwards. So let's break it down a little bit. What happens here? Because we take that best position, potentially Angela will try to punish us as well. Yeah, they need this position for their team, and in the case of Angela, there's a lot of, if you notice, good Angelas, they always try to displace people towards your team and make sure they trap them in the corners sometimes too. And right now, Nevix is just might get trapped, but at the same time, they might get slightly better cooldown trade if they do everything right. Yeah, because they might just maintain all their Thor force right now. It's going to be 3 of this Hummers, and then if this guy will commit something, they can punish them afterwards. It's Angela here. Yeah. So what they start doing is they will start using their shift, try to displace this guy, and the shift is going to be on 4 seconds cooldown. Right now, what Nevix will try to do is they're using their form to respond to that pressure. Yeah, and now we start trading the HP. So in theory, if the Navix would survive on the high ground, if they would be able to keep it, I think they might be able to get better cooldown trade right now. So we kind of, even though we're using something big here, it's possible to just continuously do the pressure. And because you force out a lot of HP, this guy here, they're forced to drop. So this is already a win. But unfortunately, because they've been pushed from this position, this is what exactly happens. It's cheaper stuff is punishing us, and right now, because we use that bigger stuff, now we're at disadvantage, and we have to give up the space right now. It's just at any point of time, you have to recognize what used what, what are you using, what the enemy used, and then you can decide, do you keep pushing forward, or do you have to give up the space if it's possible. So in the case of Nevix, exactly we'll see them. Okay, they recognize they cannot stay in this form anymore. They have to give up the space right now. And this is why it's important to think about the exit plan. What is our escape plan going forward? A lot of the times it can be just going back on this angle here, or maybe I can just try to at least go back towards an angle over there. Yeah, if not, then let's try to choose go back towards our team. I think it's still preferable if you can try to rotate on your own lane, the one you got, but yeah, as always, start the pressure, and then after that, we're gonna decide what to do. Yeah, so this fight's been pretty much over after 2 ultimates. Let's talk about this second one. Yeah, so it's gonna start here. Again, we're choosing the best position possible, and we're gonna have full Thor force from here. It's gonna be, we're using cover. We kind of want to always have an exit plan too. What are we gonna do next? In the case of Thor, probably you can try to rotate towards the left side. Maybe if something will go really wrong, then we can try to rotate towards this side here. But I think this is gonna be relatively fine, to be honest. This side of the map is pretty much can be used by you if something will go wrong. And if something will go right, then we can always push more forward, and it's gonna be mostly this lane here on the side. So see how patient they are, and now they will start using the cooldown right away. Well, what I mentioned before is, in theory, there could be those steps. Again, mouse 1, enemy uses cooldowns, you can punish enemy with your own cooldowns. Now, it seems like they're doing this step here. They're using something, they're using their cooldown, so this might be forcing an enemy to do something too. And why are they using their awakened form right now? Well, there are also some other rivals you gotta keep track on. It's just so you understand that this play is fine to do. Let's put it this way. Okay, I'm just gonna maybe write it down. You can use your cooldowns first. Yeah, you can use more expensive stuff first. If you know that there's a high chance of getting a kill. That's how I would put it. So this is gonna be this here. Let's just maybe put it somewhere above so you guys can read it afterwards. Oh, this is the code? Okay, so here we go. This here. You can use more expensive stuff first. And how do you understand if you're able to get a kill? Yeah, let's maybe also don't forget, you can use more expensive stuff first if there is a chance to get a kill. A high chance. And it usually can be based on, first off, timing. Maybe if you're able to chain the cooldowns a little bit more too, this is okay. Maybe you have some divers with you. Let's say I'm diving in with Venom. I'm diving in as Psylocke or diving in as Spider-Man. If there's somebody I can chain my cooldowns with, I think in this case you can be thinking about using that more expensive stuff first. That's how I would put it, to really simplify it, because there could be exceptions from this rule too. For example, now, why are they using this Awaken? Well, first off, we're putting extra pressure. We might be forcing some of the sustain too, like the support to just heal up a little bit. Maybe there's going to be Magneto Bubbles. We can also force out the shield of this guy, Doctor Strange, to just shield a little bit. And we're timing the pressure with the rest of our team. So that's why this cooldown trade might be in our favor. Yeah. But really, to make it easy, I always recommend at least start with thinking how you trade less expensive stuff with more expensive stuff, at least. So what I can force the enemy to do. So see here, they tanking pretty much almost everything right now. They tanked this Angela. They also tanked Bucky. Why they're able to live through is because of the shields right now. Yeah, so it's kind of in a way that because we use this Awaken now, we have this tank capabilities. That's why Thor is sort of tricky. Yeah, you kind of have to do the pressure to be able to tank too. But yeah, we started with that right now. We traded some of the stuff, and it's only Awakened versus, let's see, what's the Bucky's cooldown on the hook? It's 12 seconds cooldown here. It's also the flight, which is gonna be, yeah, it's like 3 seconds if I'm not mistaken. How much? Oh yeah, almost, yeah. So it's 3 seconds cooldown, and we also might be forcing some of the sustain from the support too. This is good enough if you know that you traded 1 cooldown versus 2 at least. This could be pretty decent. And we just need to be able to live through as a tank. You need to absorb that pressure, and then after that you can pretty much continue. Right now they realize that, well, they're not able to set up, and they need to keep fighting, maybe stop the point a little bit, use that as a cover. They start using Awaken one more time, not only to put the pressure, but always to be able to tank things too, because we have those extra shields right now. So in this case, what are we tanking? Yeah, there's quite a lot of the those defensive stuff. Yeah, we talked about the shields. We'll also see that Angela using their flight currently, and Bucky started using their ultimate too. Nerex, eventually they died, but I think it's not as bad because they've been able to get this better cooldown trade going. And this is what I mean. If you know that you're able to force out more resources, and even though you died at the end, obviously try to live as much as possible, but even though you died, that's okay because it allows you to win the fight. That's why I always think about how to be proactive on the field, and if you get that better cooldown trade, I think it'll be pretty easy for you to carry this. Stuff like that. Yeah, we could obviously watch the other examples too, but does everything make sense? Or, yeah, any questions about the cooldown trade? If no questions, we can continue, pretty much. Yeah, we can, if something's not clear, can just get you more examples. By the way, see how the most people play this map too? It's pretty common that people just use the main route. I don't think it's right. They usually try to go on this main lane here, but as I mentioned before, make sure that you get in the best position possible. Set up first. Non-linear rotation. Yeah, we're not just choosing to go in the line, go from main and then back to our card. No, we're usually trying to go right side or left side, see what's favorable for your team, and then decide what to do afterwards. We can do the pressure, we can do our Awaken, and then be able to tank things. Yeah, if there's a high chance for you to get a kill, You can also use your abilities a little bit more, kind of more active, but typically, yeah, make sure there's a better cooldown trade going. Less expensive stuff versus, yeah, just to force out more expensive. Let's put it this way. For example, here, if I would go on the Star-Lord and use my Awaken right away, what I would be trading? This guy will just use his mobility and get away, and he will have cover. So this is not good cooldown trade at all. But if I know there's some other cooldowns will be traded, like maybe this Magneto Bubbles, maybe there's gonna be Luna Snow Shift when they clap as well there. This could be pretty decent. That's what are you thinking about? Like now, I'm doing the stuff. What I can trade? I can trade the shield, the Luna Snow as well. Is gonna be using the healing on this guy. Yeah, couple bubbles. Maybe you can also force out some of the enemy to rotate too. This is always good. Yeah, positioning is also a resource too. Right, let's maybe watch Psylocke a little bit and talk about the cooldown trade there. Yeah, it's gonna be Bad Times Story. That second game. Let's take a look. Yeah, so we can start with the first fight, just whatever, honestly. Yeah, well, since we watched this one, it can be good still. We talked about the setup, initially get in the best position possible, and then afterwards we can decide what to do from there and try to get better cooldown trades. So this one is going to be interesting. What you see is the player on the enemy team, the enemy Psylocke, they use the Invis second. Okay, now Bad Time Story knows that this guy will see him, and they want to mess up the aim as much as possible. That's why this one small thing you can do on the Psylocke or like any mobile DPS, if you have the dash, you want to make sure that your rotation, so like your dashes, are not as linear as well. You need to try to solve the enemy aim, try to make sure you blink diagonally first off, and also make sure that you blink towards the cover too. And this way you can get an extra advantage. So in this case, we're trading the dash, but this will be enough for us because we know that we also will get some sort of help there, and we also have an extra advantage with this cover. This is an interesting one. Yeah, you see them using they kind of a disadvantage here technically, but still it's gonna be sort of right. We traded this one dash. Now we follow up with the next pressure. We commit the dash afterwards here with the low HP, but because we also know that there's a high chance we get help from this angle, especially if you're able to communicate that. It's gonna be good. We can punish the enemy. Yeah, make sure that our cooldown trade is gonna be in favor. It's something we can punish. Yeah, maybe think about the resources combined, whatever you have. Like in our case, by the way, we also have that orb too of the Lunar Snow. So this is already something what can allow us to have an extra advantage on this angle. Now, yeah, let's just talk about, I think right after this fight, you will see them setting up. Okay, they will go on the right side. Yeah, okay, then they start playing main here. Yeah, just gonna be a little bit extra poke going on before the fight. Again, making sure that we have most of our resources ready. The enemy will start doing something towards the choke, and they can get better cooldown trade going. Yeah, like now, for example, what happens? We have the good position, but this bulk is committing the shift after us. I think, wait, did they commit the hook as well? Let me see. Yeah, I think they used it before. Yeah, maybe they've been looking for somebody. Yeah, they've been looking for the main. Well, it's fine. By the way, if you're talking about this trade here, it's not in the favor of this guy already, right? Because there's only shield, which could be blocking the hook, which is used, and this is already 12 seconds cooldown. So this guy forced to play slow. Yeah, you have to know that if you don't have the resources, then you have to stabilize. Yep, and in this case, we see that this guy will commit something after us. They use the cooldowns first. What we can do, we can think about, are we able to punish this guy right now with our resources? If yes, then let's be more active. Let's try to just go after them with the dash. Maybe we can try to also look at if our team is ready, then this gives you more opportunities to just kill him. Yep, we can kind of get the better cooldown trade going. But in this case, I don't think there are too many resources which are on this bedtime story side, because their team, they have exactly the good line of sight on him. They're able to use all of the stuff to support. Yeah, like we see that there's also Salak showing up. There's also support, a line of sight of the Rocket Raccoon here, and it's gonna be pretty complicated for the bad time story to commit. So what you gotta think about is try to disengage. Make sure that you have an escape option. You're trying to stabilize a little bit because the enemy's committed something, and after that, there's been a chance to punish them. Actually, you see that, like right there. I think they're out of position currently, so it's easy to get. Let me see. Did they get hooked there? Most likely they did. You see, it's kind of... Your team is also making it easy for you to punish the enemy, because you choosing the best position possible on the map, yeah, you kind of forcing the enemy to make a play, and then afterwards you're punishing, your team's punishing, and you capitalizing on it. Yeah, let me see. Is there anything else what I didn't cover? So we covered the cooldown trade. We covered... Yeah, oh, also chaining cooldowns. Yeah, this is... so I will not forget. This is exactly what we saw there, by the way. You can definitely also think about whatever resources you have, whatever resources you have on your team, whatever you can chain your pressure with. Like, for example, here... If I know that I have the hook, that is something what I can commit to with my resources, and most likely there's going to be a chance to get a kill, so I can commit whenever. Also, there's could be something like any sort of ultimate. Daredevil is using their ultimate. Maybe my Bucky is using ultimate. I can commit as well. That's what they exactly see here. Yep, the hook happened. I just maybe push forward a little bit. Yeah, so the hook happened, and I see that this guy's out of position instantly, so I can commit something. In this case, we're just committing the right click, but this is enough, because they see that they're pretty much dead. Yeah, we chain the big burst stuff, whatever. If they would not be that, I think it's fine to commit the dash too. Why not? We can just try to make sure we do that first, and then move away. Now they're this right side, trying to just get a better cooldown trade. Yeah, this is not gonna be in their favor. They using that. This is gonna be something they cannot commit to, right? Because there's diamond form being used, and right now what we have to do is make sure we disengage. They don't have time for it, unfortunately, so they die. But yeah, let's watch what's gonna happen after. It's just something what we need to track too. Just whatever the big cooldowns which can punish us first. If we, in theory, if we're able to bait the Summer Frost diamond form, and you're just using the dash, this is gonna be good enough. Always think about it as we have this last expensive cooldown, which is gonna be returning like 3-4 seconds, and they use more expensive, which is gonna be returning in 10 seconds. Then that means you're gonna be at advantage. You're gonna have an extra power later on. Yeah, just make sure you do everything in the space where there's gonna be a high chance for you to get kills, and we'll be alright. Okay, let's see what's gonna happen after. Oh, actually, yeah, I think we're good to move towards that third ward. Yeah, I want to make sure that we have enough time for everything. Okay, we got this... Yeah, we got the Loki as well. So let me just talk about the cooldown straight there too. Yeah, we can watch that... Maybe attack now, I think. We'll watch the defense a little bit, but the ideas will be the same. Trying to set up, and then afterwards the enemy will try to do something, and then we can decide what to do afterwards. Okay. What do we have here? Yeah, let's just move on the attack. Yeah, on attack, I think it's gonna be a little bit difficult, but still, it's possible for you on Loki to think about those long range options. Where can he be with his long range off angles first, and then build your pressure from there. Yeah, we start thinking with using this less expensive stuff. So in the case of them, it would be their clones. They could be trading something like maybe cooldowns, defensive resources. Maybe if we can also bait out the enemy to push us, this is also good. And if you're able to live through that pressure, stuff like that. So it's just kind of the poke phase right now, but when the real brawl phase starts, then this is where it's gonna be even more important. Yeah, I see them kind of poking down the main, and they already got a pick, so they have to think about what is that area they will be pushing towards. It's 1-for-1 currently. They have to be careful. Just play it kind of slow. And you see that it's just gonna be constantly recognizing who has more resources, they have more power to push. Like, for example, now, if we are forced to use our shift here, we are for whatever reason, this is a pretty big cooldown. I think just being able, like this Invisiblement, they traded this shift with their pull. They just pulled the enemy toward, they pulled this Loki towards them. This allows them to secure so much space. So this play here, they have to recognize. Yeah, don't always treat it as, let's say the enemy's been able to trade something with you. Yeah, with less expensive, they use less expensive stuff, used more expensive as a response. I think it's still fine. Just recognize what you're gonna do afterwards. Are you gonna be staying at a position where you're at, or you need to pull back a little bit and make sure that you give up the space? And this player here, they exactly recognize that. Well, I get punished. The pool is only what? How much cooldown is that? Yeah, it's like 9 seconds. Let me see again. I forget the numbers sometimes. Yeah, so the pool is like 8 seconds cooldown, and we use this big cooldown now, but, well, whatever. Sometimes you take that, and you have to pull back. You have to give up the space. They exactly recognize that. The resource trade happened, well, for whatever reason. Maybe let's also put it on the list. I also want to say, you can use more expensive stuff if there's a chance to get a kill, or you can get killed. Maybe we can simplify it to that. So it always makes it easy for you to use all this stuff. Yeah, we'll structure it a little bit more afterwards too, if you guys want to. But so far, that's how I would put it. Okay, let's keep watching. Oh, I think, yeah, this is what we watched here. See how they started rotating? It's just as soon as possible trying to set up at the some sort of low range off angle. They're away from their team, and then they start the pressure here. Just potentially, because we want to force out some of the stuff from the enemy team, maybe we can force out this the magic to just move towards us. Maybe there's going to be Doctor Strange, which can try to punish us, and they have to use their cooldowns to get us. And because they do that, you see, like there's a lot of attention. These guys are throwing at us. Then that will make it easy for your team to push. Unfortunately, they died here. I think they just have to play a little bit more distance. It seems that they've been not able to track all these guys. It's just because they're all invisible in this ultimate. I think, yeah, it's just they kind of recognize this is dangerous. I think you have to move. You have to move faster. But anyway, this is okay. Yeah, as soon as they're able to recognize, they started. Yeah, they started to move just a little bit late. Anyway, okay. Now we're starting with just stabilizing. Okay. We got a pick and moving in. Yeah, moving in. Making sure that we keep in mind what is that next rotation we're going towards, and like I said about the escape route, where we're gonna go second. So most likely you expect the people to start on this high ground. Let's see if they start there too. They place their clone there. Most likely might be going there as well. Okay, we have the best position possible. And then afterwards, the enemies will do stuff, and they respawn. They respawn with the cooldown. So, for example, here, what this clone placement does. Well, we can split the enemy attention. We can force out all these bubbles, all the ammo frost shields, and then because you do that, you can already get in favor of the trading cooldowns. I would always say this: if you're able to have better cooldown. Well, better angle control, then it's easier for you to force out something. That's why I always would say start with the setup first, and the enemies will use some sort of defensive, and then you can capitalize on it after. By the way, in here, notice how they hide. Why they hide? Because this player here, they're using their form. Yeah, they're using their ultimate. So there's a high chance this player will receive the pressure, but they exactly know that if there's a high chance to get killed, then we have to play slow. We have to either give up space or stay in the position and don't do anything. You see, they not doing any pressure at all, actually. They kind of AFK because they don't want this guy to commit after them. They don't have an escape route, unfortunately. But then right after, they started the pressure, and we see that what we traded the shift with. Let's see. Okay, so right now, this player here, they committed the dash. Yeah, and because it's ultimate, I think it's always worth it to trade one of your defensive cooldowns. Why not? Your lamp on Loki is pretty big, in my opinion. It's like some sort of ultimate, to be honest, but you really need to be mindful. If there's a really big pressure happening, if there's ultimate, I think it's worth it. If there's just general pressure, then you have to trade it with a lot of stuff. And make sure that there's, like we said, it's worth it. I think in this case, it's going to be 3 cooldowns just for 1 lamp, at least. Or maybe 4, at least. This is going to be exactly enough. Yeah, right now they have to play slow. Maybe they don't have the lamp, but they still got some pigs there, so we can try to push up a little bit more. Yeah, we can try to take space. Yeah, so far, that's what I wanted to show you. I know it's more practical. Maybe we can also organize those notes a little bit. Yeah, make sure. Okay, so first off, for other specifics. When we are using our expensive stuff first, if there's a chance to get a kill, or you can get killed. Okay, and with expensive stuff, when we're using it first, you really want to look into timing and make sure that you chain the cooldowns for higher pressure. And let's maybe have this as separate. Use more expensive stuff if you can get killed. Okay, so that's how I would put it. And remember, there are always going to be ways to trade resources. I usually start with, if you're able to do normal pressure, enemy uses cooldowns, then you're able to punish them after that with yours. It's always good. Maybe track the cooldown, the exact cooldown, how much time this does. There's obviously some other ways to track it, like if the cooldown is pretty valuable, maybe this is some sort of AoE defensive ultimate, or defensive stuff like this Loki lamp, or maybe there's gonna be something like more offensive, which does a lot of pressure. Then this is gonna be important. This is gonna be important to try to bait out first. Like that Bucky hook, this is offensive cooldown, but if I'm able to bait it out by just sitting there and pressing mouse 1, like on Salak, we saw that, they've been holding the cover, yeah, the Bucky, maybe they try to punish them afterwards. I think this is good enough, maybe. Just to give you an example. Just make sure you survive, make sure you prepare the cooldowns, and it depends on what they do. Yep. If they use defensive stuff, we can maybe go for more offensive play, and if they use more offensive stuff, then we can use defensive. It's always vice versa, ideally, but make sure you somehow force them to use something first. That's how I would put it. And yeah, before that, it's just all about the setup. I always emphasize that you're not able to trade the cooldowns correctly if you don't have the good setup. That's why rotations and going from one good place to another is really important. I think that's it for today. Do you guys have any questions? No, we don't have too many people right now today, but yeah, we rescheduled the
No,
class
this
again.
is really good and straightforward. I appreciate it. It's nice to have it.